All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to City Club Missoula's April Forum, the State of the Community 2025 Local Action, Local Impact. I'm Alex Karklins. I have the great privilege of serving as chair of the City Club Missoula Board of Directors in 2025. Thank you all for being here today. City Club's mission is to bring together people to inform and inspire citizens on issues vital to the Missoula area community through public forums that encourage the discussion of new ideas and the free exchange of thought. We have a deep commitment to civility and civil discourse, even when discussing challenging topics. Some sincere thank yous. First, let me thank Missoula Community Access Television for recording all of our forums as part of their media assistance grants to nonprofit organizations. MCAT serves the community on cable channels 189 and 190, and you can view past forums on MCAT's YouTube channel. A special thank you to our executive level sponsors, Blackfoot Communications and First Security Bank. Our executive level sponsors are key partners in helping expand the audience access and public awareness of upcoming forums. We are grateful to all of our sponsors at all sponsorship levels for their generosity and advocacy for our mission. We invite you to join as a sponsor or as a member by visiting cityclubmissoula.com. No worries, my phone's not silent either. Okay. Thank you to our board of directors and especially our administrator, Jenny Rohrbach, who keeps things running smoothly behind the scenes. City Club would also like to acknowledge that we are in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people, some of whom may be present with us today at this forum. Today we honor the path they have shown us in caring for this place for generations to come. Finally, 2025 marks the 20th anniversary of City Club Missoula. Thank you. Thank you to all of those who have participated in our forums, provided sponsorships, and volunteered their time as board members over the years. We owe our current success to you. Now on to our panelists for this forum. They don't require any introduction, but I'm going to give them anyway. Mayor Andrea Davis was elected mayor of Missoula in fall of 2023. Previously, she worked as executive director of Homeward, where she worked statewide building homes that Montanans could afford. Mayor Davis is committed to leading a responsive local government for outstanding public service, addressing the cost of living and strengthening the Missoula economy, and improving housing choices and affordability. Our second panelist is Juanita Vero, a Missoula County Commissioner, who is a fourth-generation partner of the E-Bar-L Ranch in Greeno. In 2019, she was appointed to a vacated seat on the commission and was elected to her first six-year term in 2020. Juanita is passionate about collaborating with county staff and local partners to tackle Missoula County's thorny issues such as homelessness, affordable housing and childcare, climate action, conservation, and preserving rural quality of life. And finally, Seth Bodner, who is the 19th president of the University of Montana. His leadership is centered around the principle of inclusive prosperity, aiming to make high-quality education accessible to all and to help every member of the community reach their full potential. In addition to a distinguished military career that included serving as a Green Beret in the U.S. Army's 1st Special Forces Group and commanding a Special Forces detachment on multiple deployments, Bodner also worked for General Electric as the first digital officer and president of its digital solution business prior to joining UM. He currently holds the rank of Lieutenant Colonel in the Montana National Guard. Join me in welcoming all of our panelists. Mayor Davis, you're first to speak.
All right. I'm going to also try to time myself, so I'm not going over. Well, hi, everybody. Hi, Missoula. Thanks for being here. It's great to see you. It's a real honor to be with you today, and I want to acknowledge my fellow leaders, County Commissioner Chair Juanita Vero and University of Montana President Seth Bodner. It is a pleasure to work on thorny issues alongside of you two and all the opportunities we have to help strengthen Missoula together. Over the past year, we have made a lot of progress together, and we've been working, I think, each of us in our own ways to strengthen our community alongside the work that you do as well. For the city of Missoula, a notable example for the city is We have had significant community engagement. Thank you for many of you in the room that have participated in the work that we have done to adopt our Missoula 2045 Missoula Land Use Plan, which is a foundational change to guide our growth to meet both today's needs and tomorrow's aspirations. I want to emphasize at the start of my remarks Missoula's commitment to intentional, responsive local government at a time when higher levels of government are either stalled out or chaotic. Some in our community have been directly impacted, and all of us have been indirectly impacted by these jarring shifts. The City of Missoula will continue to collaboratively work with our community by listening, convening, and staying creative to endure this period. Our values and principles don't change because who is elected in the federal office. The city values diversity, full stop. When making decisions, we will continue to evaluate who benefits and who bears the burden of our policy decisions. The City of Missoula remains steadfast in our commitment to serving our residents with integrity, transparency, and thoughtful decision-making. In uncertain times, I commit to you that I will be a steady hand, prioritizing solutions over division, action over rhetoric, and stability over reactionary politics. So, with that, I want to give an overview, and it was in my bio, but an overview of my priorities for 2025 and into the future. First is a responsive local government for better public service. A responsive, efficient, and innovative government strengthens trust, it improves public services, and enhances community well-being. Second, addressing the cost of living and strengthening our economy locally. The rising cost of everyday living in Missoula is putting strain on many of us, making it harder for families to make ends meet. To ensure Missoula remains livable and economically vibrant, we must take proactive steps to reduce financial burdens and expand economic opportunities for all Missoulians. And third, improving housing choice and affordability. Affordable housing and homes that folks can afford is vital for Missoula's vibrant and diverse community. Addressing these challenges requires bold policies and collaboration. These three priorities lay the groundwork for long-term success and sustainability, and they're the pillars for making Missoula a place where everyone can live and thrive. These priorities target our efforts and help us achieve our climate and equity goals to better serve all Missoulians. So to get into these a little bit more, responsive government, local leadership that works. What we're aiming for is solutions-oriented governance. Recently, we did a survey. We worked with the National Community Survey, and we reached out to a number of you that provided valuable insight into a snapshot of community sentiment. They highlighted areas where we really have the opportunity to take a look at some deeper insights. The top line highlights are, people love living here, the cost of living is a major source of concern, and we have active and engaged citizenry that expect more from its governmental institutions. I don't think that is a surprise for any of you here because you're here today. The community responses on city governance and delivery of city service demonstrates that the city government, the City of Missoula, can do more to earn the trust of Missoulians. And so one of the things I found interesting is that our city outperforms the state and federal government in the eyes of our residents. 51% of our residents feel that the city view our governance in a positive way, whereas it's 29 and 28% respectively. But boy, does that show you that we have a lot of work to do at all levels of government. A meaningful way that the city can increase the trust of Missoulians is to be transparent and accountable. And that's what I signed up to do, talking about this survey. First of all, doing the survey, talking about the survey, showing the results, and coming up with a plan to publicly and transparently solve for these issues is what I'm committed to doing, and it helps us be accountable to you. Some of the things that we're going to be doing to roll these out, we're launching a new website for the city. We'll have more resident service portals that'll help you get what you need from city services more easily. We're establishing new customer service standards that furthers the culture of service at the City of Missoula. Secondly, infrastructure investments. We're implementing our infrastructure grant funds for key projects and continuing to prioritize things like water main replacements and other key utility infrastructures. These include things like continuing work on the Toole Avenue roundabout so we can deploy the downtown master plan that extends into the West Broadway area. We're going to continue to work on the South Avenue Safe Streets for All project so kids can get to school easier and more safely and people can get to work easier. We're going to continue to work on our downtown safety access and mobility project, and we're going to be putting a light at the Orange and Craig on top of the Orange Street Bridge. That signal will be put in this year. Yeah, it's good stuff. I know, we're all looking forward to that one. We're going to continue to use data and performance measures that help us deliver results. Something that came as a bit of a surprise to us, and I know it did for many of you, is that we conducted a fire station location study. We used data in terms of where all of our calls are coming from. And I think many of us assumed that Fire Station 6 would go where we are seeing development get built, towards the airport. But in fact, the call data tells us that we actually need to bring that station closer into the core of Missoula. What that will enable us to do is it will enable us to reduce call time. Reducing call time saves lives. And we'll be able to build a Station 6 closer to the core of Missoula and then be able to enhance service out of Station 4, which is close to Costco. So we're basically adjusting all of our stations in order to better serve the city of Missoula. But we wouldn't have made that decision without looking at data more carefully. And those are the kinds of things that we're doing to make sure that we are spending your money more thoughtfully and more efficiently. Property tax reform. Something that I wanted to mention here, I would love to say, we have something passed at the legislature, but they're still working on it. We've worked hard during the session to work on meaningful tax reform for us, because we know how important this is. In our most recent survey, I just mentioned, our national community survey, over 70% of City of Missoula respondents favored a tourist tax to provide property tax relief, but a couple of variations at the legislature this year did not make it through. That said, it looks like a property tax relief package will be coming to homeowners in the form of a rebate and or reduced tax rates that will take effect next year. I hope it'll provide meaningful relief. I really do. It does shift, however, the tax burden between homeowners, business owners, ag producers, industry, rather than lessening our reliance on property taxes. But we have to start somewhere. And if we can get something passed, then we can take a look at what's going to continue to work for Montana residents. Budgeting through a cost of living lens. We are focusing on efficiency, accountability, and measurable return on investment at the City of Missoula. An example of this is that we have a sidewalk assessment program. And that sidewalk assessment program largely is paid for through grants and other ways that we pay for those. But taxpayers, property owners, pay for an assessment when that sidewalk is put in their property. And oftentimes, we've evaluated this, and really we're finding more and more diminished effectiveness because the cost of installing sidewalks has become exponentially expensive for us. So we're finding that the assessments really only contribute about 6% of the overall project cost, but they demand about 400 hours of staff time per project. That's about $40,000 per project, just of staff time to administer it, to connect with residents, to get the notices out there, to coordinate on the assessment formulas. And so we have comprehensive infrastructure needs all across the city. And so we are shifting as we consider equity and fairness. A lot of these sidewalk assessment projects go into neighborhoods that are developing, which means that the property values are a little bit lower, which means that folks that are often living in these neighborhoods are low and moderate income, and they are not able to bear the cost of additional assessments on their property. So we're adjusting. And instead, we're going to be funding city projects for sidewalks that offer broad community benefits. That looks like collector streets. It looks like our greenways. We're going to focus on grant-funded work and explore alternative funding sources. It's a common sense approach. It's where we are right now. We're meeting the moment, and we need to make sure that we are helping our residents the best we can. Economic development. Working with partners in this room to strengthen sectors like trade, clean energy, and advanced manufacturing. My colleagues will speak much more to the DOGE effects on organizations and their organizations, But we're all deeply concerned about these chaotic cuts at the federal level and how they're impacting our local businesses. We are hearing growing concern from businesses across engineering, utilities, and infrastructure sectors regarding the ongoing freeze in federal funding. In these three sectors, Missoula companies have large-scale capital projects that are now on hold. Even if the funding is eventually released, proceeding before authorization carries significant risks, and these firms are being forced to either pause or move forward at their own risk. So we will continue to pivot when it comes to managing things that are outside of our control by using local economic development tools to support new initiatives that will serve residents. So for example, when the Roseburg plant just announced that it was closing, we had a choice there to act quickly, and that we did. And we are working with that landowner. We're working with our local partners here to get that area back into economic action so it can continue to be an economic engine. We also worked with our partners to make sure that those folks that were laid off had the opportunity to gain job skills and connections so they could become reemployed quickly, and that they were. And we were very fortunate to see that happened. We'll continue to pivot how we need to here locally. So when it comes to economic opportunity for everyone, we acknowledge that affordability of living in Missoula is a shared concern, and it's also a shared responsibility. Lastly, housing, affordability, and choice. We are moving forward, as I mentioned, on this generational opportunity to overhaul our land use plan. Thank you for adopting that this December, City Council. And our development codes in order to help Missoula by providing housing affordability and commercial opportunity through thoughtful growth. When we overhaul our unified development code, we are creating opportunities for more housing, missing middle housing, and business options, and reducing red tape. We are going to be advancing projects like the Scott Street Rivara project, where we have 89 homes currently under construction that will be on a community land trust and affordable to our workforce. Another 230 homes will be built in market rate rental housing, and some park space will be built there in order to create a new vibrant neighborhood amongst an existing vibrant neighborhood. We're working on our North MRL Triangle, working on a master plan there to see what future opportunities will exist right in Midtown, as well as the Southgate Triangle property that we purchased and looking to get that actively deployed into more housing and commercial opportunities to meet the needs of Missoulians. This foundational change in our land use and code will allow us for more housing and commercial opportunities. And some people say that Missoula shouldn't grow or change, but the reality is that change is here. So we have the opportunity to shape that change, and we have the opportunity to make sure that Missoula is an incredible place to live, to work, to retire, and to learn in. Today I'm excited to announce the formation of the Mayor's Task Force on the City Lands Redevelopment. What this is, the purpose of this is to help identify opportunities for development in city-owned lands to meet our community goals, both in terms of, especially for housing, but also commercial to expand economic opportunity. There's going to be a mixed, diverse group of community leaders with expertise in affordable home construction, financing, real estate, and other aspects of community development and housing construction that will help develop a comprehensive strategy for approximately 45 acres of city-owned land. I really do believe that this shows the city's commitment to turning our assets into opportunity and meeting the moment. Lastly, I just want to say that it is our time here locally to lead with vision, focus, and our values. I want to celebrate along with you the strength, the partnership, our shared goals, and our sense of place. The priorities I highlighted today help us achieve our other goals that are incredibly important to us as a community, like our climate goal, for example. When we adjust our land use and when we take on this new unified development code, we are reducing the reliance on single vehicles, that we are actually doing the most important thing we can do as a municipality to help address our community's climate goals. Somebody shared with me that we are multi-solving, and that is a great way of saying that that's the work we do all the time, every day, together. We're not waiting for permission to do the right thing. We're going to continue to get creative to achieve our community goals. And I just want to say that thank you, folks. I believe in the work that we are doing as a community. I believe in its people, and I believe that the best is yet to come. Thank you very much.
How's the audio? Can you all hear me? Okay. Chewing, you can hear through the chewing. My name is Juanita Vero, and like Alex said, I'm of the EYL Ranch out in rural Greeno, like lost at zip code rural. I'm one of your 3 county commissioners, and this year I'm the chair, so I get the honor of doing City Club. And there's nothing I like more than monologuing at people. Not. So I hope you'll indulge me and allow my dear friends and fellow commissioners Strohmeyer and Slotnick to engage during table talk. Because really, the county commission is the 3 of us, and it feels a little awkward for me to be up here by myself, but they're right here. Local action, local impact. That's the theme of the City Club. And I'm going to start with the weather. Nom de guerre, climate. And some of you are totally rolling your eyes. Climate, and I get that. It's like being reminded to put 3 different colors of vegetables on your plate. I got it. You know what's good for you, and really you do care, but you'd rather talk about thwarting fascism. And while I know many of us are boning up on our European history from 100 years ago, we also got to talk about climate. We're experiencing hotter, drier summers, that drought, low rivers, weak winter snowpack. I mean, this winter wasn't that bad, but still, quick runoff, floods, the wind, that July derecho. Weather worldwide is becoming more erratic and damaging. And the impacts of climate change are real, and we're seeing them constantly throughout Missoula County. And solving this crisis is going to take all of us, and the county and the city are committed to providing the leadership to do our part and be a beacon for others. We continue to pursue our 100% clean electricity goal, working towards carbon neutrality in our county buildings and our vehicles, taking action to help our communities prepare for and react to the impacts of climate change, like increased heat and smoke. We know that climate solutions will make our communities stronger, like the mayor said, cleaning our air, creating jobs, building ignition-resistant and energy-independent homes, and lowering people's bills. Missoula County, actually like the entire Intermountain West, is particularly sensitive to climate weirding. Take last summer's drought, for example. By September, the Blackfoot River was running below 400 cubic feet per second, and usually at that time of year, it should be around 700 CFS. No doubt, 2024 was one of the hottest, driest, waterless years for that watershed, and the crops are needing much more water to reach their full potential. And we can't ignore what's happened up back in 2021 in Denton, where there are no trees, and down in Boulder, Colorado. Both those fire incidences happened in December. And of course, there's Maui in 2023, and then LA just this past January. Here in Missoula County, heat and drought don't just mean fishing restrictions, but also that urban conflagrations are possible. And as many of you found out, your insurers know this too. So many of our homes were built in this part of Montana without concern for air conditioning. Air conditioning wasn't on anyone's radar. Generally speaking, you could open your windows if you needed to cool your place down. And now we have summer and nighttime temperatures that are so high that even if you open your windows, it doesn't really make a difference. And then there's the smoke. And if it's not local Montana smoke, it's from Idaho or Washington, Oregon, California, Canada. And any of us have young children or have a pacemaker or know someone with a pacemaker. It seems like they're all the rage these days. Young lungs, old lungs, compromised lungs suffer and smoke. And I can feel Strohmeyer twitching over there. So just want you to know, for improved forest health, we gotta do more. We have to do more prescribed burning as well. We live in a fire-adapted landscape. That's its natural state. It's what's been for millennia and where it wants to be. This landscape requires fire in order for it to be healthy. And with fire comes smoke, which means that we must achieve smoke tolerance. We need to ensure the community has indoor places with cool, clean air, that our homes are equipped with air filters. And then also, If it's not heat, we're dealing with a dropped mercury in the winter. So regardless, household energies remain stubbornly high. And yep, so again, reminder, impact of climate change are real, they're here, and we can't afford to ignore them. Climate change is a threat to our health, our life, and our economy. And Missoula County is taking action. We've partnered with the city to get 100% clean electricity for the urban area by 2030, ambitious, through things like pursuing the Green Power Program to build a utility-scale 50-megawatt renewable energy project with Northwestern Energy. And that'd be enough new clean energy to power 10,000 homes. And so for reference, in 2023, there were 58,360 homes in Missoula County. The county is also taking responsibility for our own actions, like our buildings and our vehicles, and have significantly reduced emissions already through things like installing Montana's largest rooftop solar array on the county detention center's roof. And then also our ecology and extension buildings already gone solar, and the fairgrounds and public works that's in the works, it's happening. In process. We'll be installing free, publicly accessible electric vehicle charging stations at the ice rink and at the Ecology and Extension Building. We're also working to prepare our communities to deal with the impacts of climate instability by, we got home ignition zone work, we're updating our community wildfire protection plan. We recently launched the Home Upgrade Hub to help county residents plan retrofit or home retrofit projects to make their homes more efficient, cost-effective, and comfortable. And we're working to get out in front of things like extreme heat, smoke, and wildfire through community education, planning, and resiliency efforts. Government isn't the answer to everything, but God damn it, it is part of the solution. And together with private and nonprofit partners, the solution really is possible. And now for some Debbie Downer. What happens federally absolutely impacts us. A third of the county's revenue comes from state and federal foundations, grants, and we recently learned that federal grant to fund that home upgrade hub, that grant's gone. So that means 2 young, smart, enterprising staffers eager to help Missoula County residents, now their future is uncertain. The $30 million in federal funding awarded to transform Highway 200 through East Missoula, that's now in limbo. Missoula Public Health lost 3 community health care workers, and these are the folks who walk alongside people who are perceived by society to be too scary, too different, too new, too unstable, too misunderstood, too lost to access and navigate the various aspects of community services in their pursuit for better health. This might look like helping someone who's experiencing homelessness fill out a rental application. Could be helping families understand where they can find healthy food, access to immunizations, improved child health. One community health care worker taught parenting classes to connect for families that were connected to the foster care system. And then if none of that really matters to you at a very basic, crass level, the grueling work that community health care workers do saves this community significant money by keeping people out of the justice system. And we just lost 3 of them. So back in 2018, Madeleine Albright challenged us in her book, Fascism, A Warning. Thanks, Dave Westphal. I don't know where he is, but he told me to read this book. She asked a series of questions to ask each of our leaders. Do they encourage us to have contempt for our governing institutions and the electoral process? Do they seek to destroy our faith in essential contributors to democracy, such as an independent press and a professional judiciary? Her last question was, or do our leaders invite us to join in the building and maintaining of a healthy center for our societies, a place where rights and duties are apportioned fairly, the social contract is honored, and then all of us have room to dream and grow? I like to think here at Missoula County, the city of Missoula, and at the University of Montana, that this is true. Here's an example of dreaming, growing, and also demonstrating the importance of public-private partnerships to provide key public infrastructure like water, sewer, roads, bridges. Montana Knife Company needed to expand operations from their Frenchtown location, and they chose to do so out at the intersection at the Y near 93 and I-90. And while creating a public water supply system was being discussed at the city and the county for that area, nothing would be in place by the time Montana Knife Company needed to build their 50,000-foot facility for their 150 to 200 employees. And Montana Knife Company also prides itself on hiring local talent. And in order for that local talent to remain local, that talent's got to live here. Montana Knife Company needed a water system. And it just so happens Grass Valley Industrial down the road needed a small water system for their subdivision. And these two enterprises got together, reached out to the county, and together we found a way to build a much larger public water system for the whole area. And that will allow for much needed industrial, commercial, and residential growth to occur, that development to occur. And this would not, absolutely would not have happened without the trust and the chutzpah and the creativity of an anchor development like Montana Knife Company. This is a prime example of how tax increment financing is an effective tool that provides the infrastructure necessary to support development. And sufficient infrastructure is required to increase the housing stocks at the density needed to make the housing affordable. And this is a major priority throughout the entire county. And as commissioners, we're going to be voting on a piece this week to help make this a reality. So despite federal recklessness and uncertainty, we're holding firm with our partners and our priorities, and the reality is that anywhere west of the Mississippi is subsidized by the rest of the country, especially in rural areas like Montana. But here at the county, a third of the county receives, what a third of the county receives is from, as I've mentioned, comes from the state and federal grants and foundations. There's no way what you pay for in your property tax, no way that costs or covers the cost to run a jail, to maintain 451 miles of road, 132 bridges, 528 sumps, 337 culverts, hold elections, arguably the best run election center in the state, if not the region. Woo! Operate 911 and keep a county the size of Delaware safe. We're absolutely dedicated to what projects can be done and what is being done without federal assistance. And at the same time, I'm really hesitant to tout that independence because, cheese and rice, what makes this country great is that fellow Americans uphold our social contract to each other. None of us can go it alone. That's our system, and for all its flaws, democracy is the best form of government we have. And it is so very, very fragile. And we have to choose it every day. And we have to defend it every day. So some of us come to these things at City Club seeking answers. Some of you might want to come and be reassured that your local government can handle the current stress test. And some of you come to point and laugh. And psha, you think these yahoos know their way out of this dumpster fire, as if. Point taken, duly noted. But about a month ago, I was at a Common Good organizing event. And I shared this Buddhist phrase, chop wood, carry water. I know a lot of you are probably familiar with it. After enlightenment, or in times of uncertainty, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Be present, be mindful, be intentional. Focus on the fundamentals and do them really well. After the county, the city, the university, or nonprofit partners, we have a foundation of trust and collaboration that was most recently buttressed and then tested during the pandemic. And that foundation held, and it's going to hold against what's coming now. So good government exists to provide you with the tools and resources to deal with the scary things out of your control. And here at the county, The three of us and about 1,000 county employees are absolutely dedicated to providing quality public service to protect and enhance the well-being of the people, communities, and environment of Missoula County. So with that, the state of the county is strong.
So I am so privileged every day to get to work alongside colleagues like Mayor Davis, like Commissioner Vero. I don't like to have to follow them, though, especially after that. And I want to acknowledge our other county commissioners. I also saw Councilwoman Jones, some other city council members here. And I just want to make a point to thank all of the leaders here in this community. Maybe I'll use Juanita's term. I couldn't be more proud to serve alongside this group of yahoos. And as the father of 3 kiddos growing up in this community, I feel deeply grateful for your commitment of your time, your talent, your passion to shaping a prosperous Missoula for today and for future generations. And it's I'd extend that to City Club. It's so great to be back at City Club. This is one of my favorite gatherings every year, and I love the new space. I like that we're crowded in here. It makes it feel vibrant and close. It's fantastic. But I care. I love this event because this room is filled with people who care deeply about this community. And we have that validated every year based on the types of questions we get after table talk, because you don't shy away from tough conversations, and you demonstrate your care for this place. And again, my kids are the 6th generation in their family to grow up in this state, and I am so grateful for our leaders, but for people like everyone in this room who show up on a Monday morning to hear about their community, to participate in its governance, who are committed to local action and to local impact. So thank you. And I'm so grateful to be here in what I think is an embodiment of the civic spirit of the Missoula community, which is this library. It is without peer. And this library is a phenomenal asset to this community, and I think a great symbol of what makes Missoula great. So great to be here. So as for the state of the University of Montana, it's a great time to be a Grizz. It is a great time to be a Grizz. UM is firmly in a cycle of growth. Last fall, we posted the largest year-over-year enrollment gain in 15 years, and since the pandemic, we've added more than 1,300 students, and our freshman class has grown by 47%. These numbers are not just a statistical uptick. They represent your university bucking national trends to become the fastest growing university in our great state and one of the fastest growing flagships in the entire Western United States. It is exciting. But we're especially proud that growth is rooted right here in Montana. We're seeing more in-state students choose the University of Montana. We've seen an increase of 41% in student veterans at the university since 2019. And since 2018, we've seen a 45% increase in Native American students at our university. But we're not just growing. We're delivering results. Our 4-year graduation rate is at the highest rate on record since we began tracking our graduation rates in 2001. And so our students are succeeding on to graduation. They're also thriving and in some cases making history. Last year, Coulter Stevenson from Amsterdam, Montana became UM's first Rhodes Scholar in 3 decades. And he's joining, right now, he's over at Oxford. I just got an email from him a couple days ago, and he's alongside B. Frizzell, a former Polson Pirate and UM grad who is studying at Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar, or excuse me, as a Marshall Scholar. And most recently, we have a Missoula Sentinel grad, so a Spartan out there, Lydia Garrick, who was named a Goldwater Scholar. And these are amazing students. Coulter, B, Lydia, these are incredible young people who are our neighbors. They're our future community leaders. They're our pharmacists. They're our local teachers. They're our colleagues. And their achievements are tremendous. But really across the board, you see our students outperforming their peers nationally. Our law school, our med school acceptance rates are about 20 percentage points higher than the national average. In fact, this past year, the students in our pre-law program, and this is a program that is a thriving program, it's grown by 156% over the past few years. Well, our students in that program this past year achieved an acceptance rate to law school of, wait for it, 100%. 100% of our pre-law students. National average is in the 60s. And so these students are thriving. Our graduate programs are also expanding. We're adding new degrees like our PA program, our OT program, to meet critical healthcare needs across our entire state. Our law school continues to rank #1 in the West in terms of employment outcomes, bar passage rates, federal clerkships received, and we do all of that at a fraction of the cost of our peers. And as many of you know, our research enterprise continues to thrive. Despite growing pressures, concerning pressures at the federal level, UM just set yet another record for research output this past year at $144 million, which is a 143% increase just over the past decade. So huge growth in the research enterprise. And I think it's important to note that that's not just academic progress. That's not just our researchers, our faculty members tackling some of our society's most thorny problems. Those research dollars represent tremendous economic development impact. They represent job and business creation right here in Missoula and across the entire state. And so that research enterprise is a huge asset, not just of this university, but of this community. And it's exciting to see that your university is being recognized across the country for its excellence. For the third year straight, Washington Monthly, in its rankings of more than 1,800 universities nationally, recognized the University of Montana as the #1 university in the entire country for community and national service. That deserves a round of applause, because that recognition is not just about the university. That recognition is a product of course, of the tremendous faculty and staff, but it is also a representation of the spirit of service that pulses throughout the Missoula community. And I want to give kudos to everyone in this room for that recognition and that honor. It's yours. And and a few years ago, we set a pretty ambitious goal at the University of Montana. We are always deeply grateful for the tremendous service of our military members, their families, and we took one of those, hey, let's set one of those big, hairy, audacious goals. We said we want to be at the University of Montana the most military-friendly university in the country. Pretty audacious, but you gotta take some swings. So we established and revamped an Office of Military and Veteran Services. We looked at, adapted some of our policies, some of our practices, and we've been excited about the progress we're making. And last month, I got an email from a group called Military Friendly Schools that assesses universities all over the country in terms of their policies, their progress, what they're doing. And I learned through this email that among Tier 1 research universities across the United States, that there was a university that had been named #1 in that category, the University of Montana. And again, thank you. That's a reflection not just of this university, but of this community. And I want to say thank you for the deep partnership of this community with that university. We are making progress, we are thriving, and it's being seen and recognized, rightfully so. But while UM is thriving, I think it's important that we acknowledge the broader national context. It affects our university, it affects our community. As you well know, federal support for education, especially in the fields of research, but extending more broadly, we're seeing threats to that. we're seeing reductions, and those trends are troubling, not just for but for our entire community. Our economy is, of course, buoyed in part, just as our county's coffers are, our research impact and the economic impact that those have on our community depend on federal research dollars. And so we're working closely with our federal delegation to do everything we can to protect the grants we already have, while at the same time doing some scenario planning to prepare for reductions in the future. Because make no mistake, cuts to federal funding for Montana universities are going to have an outsized impact on Montanans. We have already seen job loss. We're going to see the loss of support for outreach activities, important outreach activities, such as public health, fire management, drought and water prediction, K through 12 engagement. In fact, our very own Spectrum, based right here in the Missoula Library, has already suffered cuts to their federal grants. At the same time, we're seeing a continued decline in confidence in higher education. The percentage of American high school graduates that go on to education, either 2-year or 4-year, has declined by nearly 10% since 2016. And Montana is seeing very concerning trends that are even more extreme. So we're on the brink of seeing, really for the first time in our country's history, a generation of Americans who will come into adulthood with less education and training than the generation before them. As a former business executive, I'm deeply concerned about the consequences of these falling rates of educational attainment and federal investment. As a former Special Forces officer in the Army, I'm also concerned for our national security. As you think about our competitors on the global stage, whether it be China or India, name your country, these countries are all working feverishly to build the system of higher education that we were blessed to inherit in this country, while we're falling behind, while we're attacking that same system. That is concerning. But we can't sit idly by. We have to face these challenges head on, and we have to do all that we can to build a prosperous and inclusive community and nation for our children and grandchildren. So at that means doubling down on our mission, which, as many of you know, we like to summarize in just 2 words: inclusive prosperity. Our job, simply put, is to ensure that every single member of our community, regardless of where you come from, who your parents were, what political party you're a part of, who you love, what you look like, how much money you have, everyone ought to have the opportunity to reach their full potential. At we proudly reject the notion that somehow quality is measured by exclusivity. We're committed to providing a world-class education that is broadly accessible to anybody who's willing to show up and work hard. A lot of universities, the ones you'll read about, they'll stand up there and brag about the fact that they only admit 5% of the people who apply, as if somehow turning people away and being exclusive means that you're high quality. And maybe they use that as justification for charging $75,000 or $80,000 a year for tuition. We take a different approach. We accept about 90% of the people who apply. We charge them 1/10 of what other universities charge, and we still produce Rhodes Scholars and students who beat out their peers nationally. That's the Montana way. And at a time in this country when many people feel, and I think rightfully so, that the pathways to economic opportunity in this country have narrowed, and that many of our nation's institutions have been captured by an elite, select few, well, we believe that this approach to education is more important than ever. We believe, in fact, that it's foundational to the long-term economic, social, civic, and cultural prosperity of our state and of our republic. So in these times of uncertainty, is not retreating. We're leaning in. We know that Montana's future depends on institutions like ours. And we know that this community, more than ever, needs a flagship university committed to opening doors, to creating opportunity, to preparing citizens to lead. And so we're responding with focus and with innovation. We're growing short-term workforce training programs like Accelerate Montana. We've launched new programs in cybersecurity and health. We're working harder than ever to ensure that our programs remain relevant, that our impact remains visible, and that our value remains undeniable. And we're also working diligently to ensure that UM education not only prepares our students to succeed in the workplace, but also shapes them as informed members of their community, able to engage meaningfully and respectfully with people across the ideological spectrum. That's what we're focused on. But we can't do this alone. So I want to close by saying thank you once again. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your advocacy. And thank you for your belief in what's possible. I am so excited to be here in this community. I'm so excited to continue working alongside this great group of yahoos that I'm so privileged to be a part of, to deliver inclusive prosperity, not just as a tagline, but as a reality for every Montanan. Thanks, everyone.
All right, lots of thanks to our panelists. Thank you for your prepared remarks. Right now, we're going to break for table talk. Those of you who have been to City Club before know exactly what the rules are, but we'll go ahead and review them. We'll have a slide coming up here soon. So we're going to take about 10 minutes to break. I want everybody who's at a table to get to know your table mates, introduce yourselves, and formulate a question, a single question. Appoint a representative from your table to ask that question. And as we see on here, we'd like to keep the questions respectful, avoid making statements, don't provide a whole lot of background to your question. If you can just get right to it, we have lots of tables to get through today. Avoid multi-part questions. And members of the media, please wait until after you're done. When we come back in about 10 minutes, we'll have two board members coming around. Your appointed question asker should just raise their hand and we'll come around to get you. As a reminder, we have a survey. There's a QR code at each table and also on one of the slides here later on. If you could please take the time to take that short survey, we would love to get your feedback. So see you back here at about 12:15. So welcome to our Q&A section. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll have 3 board members walking around the room. When it's your turn to ask your question, please stand up, introduce yourself. The board member will just hold on to the microphone for you. Just ask your question, and we'll move along. We've got lots of tables to get through. President Bodnar, I'm sure, is heading back, but we got at least Mayor Davis and Commissioner Rivero can start answering your questions. So with that, let's get started with the Q&A portion of the program.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, to what extent are county commissioners across Montana working together to help educate our federal delegation about the outsized impact of the loss of federal funding for the Montana as a whole? David Gray.
Thank you. To what extent county commissioners across the state are working together to with our federal I mean, we were last in DC in January. We're going to we'll be back east again in July, and so I feel like that's a great opportunity. And I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Montana Association of Counties. We'll spend time back in DC with a delegation, and we'll know more in July of kind of like the real impacts. Like we'll have some more like harder numbers. Right when we were meeting in January, it was kind of chaos, and so we didn't really have anything real to discuss. But I feel, yeah, now we do. And yes, I do think there is, with the Montana Association of Counties, that's a great vehicle to kind of represent all counties. And then, I don't know if you know this, but actually Montana has kind of outsized influence at that National Association of Counties level. There's a lot of Montana leadership there, and I'm just learning that. And so that's a good thing, I guess, but I'm not really answering your question other than in July, we're going to do more, learn more. I know, Strohmeyer or Slotnick, do you guys have anything to add? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Juanita, Commissioner Rivero hit the nail on the head. We have reached out to our delegation here in the state of Montana. We've met with their staffers here in Missoula. We've met with members of Congress in Washington, D.C., and have expressed very forcefully that there are real ramifications for cutting staff of the U.S. Forest Service. It trickles down to, if we're talking about needing to make sure that we have healthy forests and that we have communities that are fire resilient, we need to actually physically be doing work on the land, and that takes real people. And when we're talking about federal lands and even state lands and private lands, that oftentimes means federal dollars. So the need to continue to make our case known here in the state of Montana and here in Missoula County that the federal government needs to continue playing a leadership role is not lost on us, and we continue to do that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Hi, I got the mic, thanks. Good to see you all. Chris Anderson, representing our table here. It's been observed that agencies and organizations taking stances on issues like climate change and inclusivity have seen punitive effects from the federal government. How are you changing your message to adapt to that new reality? Are you changing your message?
All right, Chris, great question. Thank you. The first place, I mentioned at the beginning of my remarks that the city is committed to diversity and full stop. That no matter who takes office at the federal government, executive orders don't apply to local government. They do impact the federal agencies that oversee some of the grants that we work on together, and that's a very real reality. But ultimately, when we look across all of our values, our principles, our documents, we're standing true to our values and principles. So far, we have had no impact by the federal government saying you need to change your business. You need to change the way you're doing things. So we're going to, personally, at the City of Missoula, they have not come to us and say you need to change X, Y, and Z. Now they are changing. They're saying if you have federal dollars, we're going to change some of the priorities that we have. We, again, like I say, you'll be the first to know when we start to see some real impacts to our federal resources. But in the meantime, we are going to continue to stay true to our principles and our values. And ultimately, when we talk about what does it mean to have a diverse and inclusive workforce, that means that we have a workforce that looks like you and others in our community that feel like Missoula, the City of Missoula, is a good place to work, that our institutions are a good place to work where they can start careers and remain in those positions for a long time. And we know that inclusive policies are simply good for business. It's not because we're following some tagline and it's a cool thing and it's like we're following the shiny thing. It's because we're actually addressing the needs of the many diverse residents that we have in our community. And so we're going to stay steadfast to that.
I mean, I think it's a great question, and I think at the University of Montana we're not shying away. Frankly, we're doubling down on our mission of inclusive prosperity. And I think what's important is that means that our university is and should be a place where everyone can reach their full potential. That's why I emphasize it in the front, right? It's not about prioritizing one group over another. It's about making sure that our university is a place that opens pathways to opportunity. I think a lot of people, like I said, are pretty frustrated. And they feel as if opportunity in this country has been narrowed. And I think places like the University of Montana have to double down. And we're talking very proudly about inclusive prosperity in the broadest sense of the word. And we're going to continue to do so. And I've spoken with many of our legislators and talked very directly and clearly about that being our mission. That's really been the mission of our flagship university since its inception in 1893, to provide a high quality education for Montanans from all backgrounds and walks of life, and we think that continues to be just as important and frankly more important today, that we have the ability to get a low-cost education that is on par with an education of the quality of education you can get anywhere in the country.
And the county also, same. I mean, what the county does is provide services, roads, bridges, chip sealing, dust abatement, complaining about your neighbor's dogs. I mean, the county will continue to serve all people, and so yeah, we're not going to be cowed.
Our table wants to return to the first question and ask the university and the city to answer the question, are you working with other cities? Is the League of Cities and Towns, is the university part of a larger coalition that will bring strength to asking the federal questions of the questions to the federal government? The city, the university alone can't fight this battle. Are you doing anything like MACO to get one voice?
I've got the microphone, so I'll start here. So the legislative session's gotten us a bit busy with the Montana League of Cities and Towns. I would say yes. The city of Missoula is a significant partner with that statewide organization, and we will continue. When the legislative session expires here in just a short while, we will continue to advocate for our work. We are also members of the National League of Cities and Towns, and that is definitely where our voices are magnified. I personally will be on a phone call with the mayors of the 7 largest cities, but quite frankly, Belgrade actually should be in, so we're going to start to invite Belgrade into this situation because Belgrade's growing quite fast. But we will we get on the horn quarterly, and we talk about ways in which that we can help magnify one another's voice in this sense. We've been working. I didn't address this in my remarks. And, back to really related to the other question that was just asked, we continue to work with representatives of our state departments, so the Department of Transportation, for example, to make sure that we are working in concert together to reach out to our federal delegation so folks understand just how these federal grants impact the vitality of our communities. And when we talk about the grant that we have together to address the infrastructure needs into East Missoula, Highway 200. And we are talking about real safety issues. We are talking about ways in which people will get back and forth from their home into their jobs, into school safely and more easily. And this isn't about, again, some shiny object. And what we keep working on is trying to get folks to see the core value of what this is, which is really, it's a solid infrastructure project, and it meets the needs of our community. And so we will continue to work with colleagues around the country. I'm lucky enough to be part of the Bloomberg program, or the City of Missoula is part of the City Leadership Initiative. And so there are 100 mayors that I'm connected with around the country as we trade notes and figure out ways that we can reach out to federal representatives to make sure that they're understanding the decisions they're making, how those are impacting our communities. One of those mayors is from Edmonton and Alberta. And so one of the things that we're addressing is how it is that we can write a national letter in regards to the tariffs and how we know that that will impact the efforts that we are making when it comes to home choice and affordability. And this will impact the businesses in our community. So we're working on that as I speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the short answer is yes. I've spoken personally multiple times with both of our senators and our representatives talking about the specific issues with grants that are at the University of Montana. I've emphasized both their value and the impact of their loss. The cuts to federal research are going to hit particularly hard at public universities, especially public universities in rural states, and we've emphasized the negative impacts there. I think in terms of the broader, I speak with groups of other university presidents somewhat regularly, and frankly, it's been something that I've spoken about and written about at the national level, talking about the importance of our university system, not just for our economic health, but for our national security. 68 years ago, some of you might remember, the beep heard around the world when the Soviets launched Sputnik, and the fear and bordering on panic that cut through many Americans' hearts as they realized the Soviets were in the lead in the space race. What was our response? A year later, in 1958, the United States, or the President of the United States at the time, Republican President Dwight Eisenhower, signed into law the National Defense Education Act, passed by a Democratic Congress, which doubled down on research at our universities. And the past 7 decades of economic flourishing in this country, I would trace in large part to the investment in research that we made. Take a simple thing like this. You know, how many of the components of this device started as basic research at a university that never would have been funded by a public company? I worked at a big one, GE, that frankly does some of the most in-depth research of any company in the world. However, some of the primary research that underpins this technology would not happen without universities. And that is a huge, huge advantage that we are ceding to the rest of the world when we destroy the asset that is our system of higher education and our research universities. And so we've made that point very clear. We're going to continue to make that point very clear. And I think the more people that are aware of that and just think about what is the country that we're handing to our kids and our grandkids. You know, I'm benefiting from the wisdom of President Eisenhower and the democratically controlled Congress in 1958 that passed that act, right? I benefited when I was in uniform as a Special Forces officer. I benefited in the business world. What are our children going to say about us and our grandchildren going to say about us 7 decades from now about what we're doing to prepare them to enjoy the same level of prosperity that we enjoy as Americans today? And that's something that we all have to own.
Hi there. So this is a time of great divisiveness and polarization. As leaders, what is your most successful strategy for finding and achieving consensus with people of varying opinions and approaches? Oh, and I'm Erin.
A great question. Thank you. And something we're working hard on at the university. I mean, I think that's sits at the core of why universities exist. Of course, to produce knowledge, to educate people, but really to shape our students as informed, engaged members of their community who are able to interact respectfully with people across the ideological spectrum. To be able to sit in the discomfort of hearing ideas they might disagree with or frankly might even find offensive. And being able to still engage respectfully. That's something we're working on. In fact, this Thursday at the university, we have our 2nd annual Democracy Summit, where our students, our staff, and faculty are engaging in a series of challenging conversations about how do we foster civil discourse? How do we foster dialogue across difference? It's been a continual effort at the university and something that we're doubling down on. And we're seeing it in our students. We're seeing our students, frankly, engage across difference in ways that frankly, I think some of the quote-unquote grown-ups in our country could learn a lot from. In fact, UM did have some protests last spring about the war in Gaza, but I'll tell you, people were passionate, understandably. They were also respectful. They were also peaceful. I didn't have a camera, but I absolutely saw one image of someone draped in an Israeli flag talking to someone draped in a Palestinian flag. That's what we want at the university, and that's what we're trying to encourage through things like the Democracy Summit, as well as some of the training we're doing even in orientation about civil discourse, free speech, what that means, and how part of college is being able to engage with ideas that you disagree with or that make you uncomfortable. So we see that as core to what our university is here for.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you. And I also think of that division is a sort of a sick distraction. And we got to do all that we can to not be distracted by these, these divisions. And I think it's important, like city, county, university, nonprofit partners, like we really do, work well together. And I said this, we have that foundation of collaboration and trust. And we're not teaching students at the county, but I think just moving forward with that ethos will demonstrate to the community. And then it's all up to all of you to mirror this and demonstrate it and be neighborly.
Thank you. Well, Seth, you make a university alum proud. Thank you. I think that we're all university alum. There's a lot of university alumni in here. Right on. All right. Go Grizz. Thank you. I would add that at the local level, and we joke around about this, like that potholes aren't partisan, right? And and it's true. Like so much of the work that we do every single day matters to everybody, regardless of your political persuasion. And division is a purposeful tool that is being used with incredible bludgeon and precision right now. And we need to remember that the work that we're doing and the priorities that we have as local government and as a state university, that we are impacting our lives daily, and that we have way more in common than we have apart. That said, when we do have differing opinions, when we do have a difference, we do need to be able to have a conversation in such a way that we learn from one another and we respect those opinions. And as a local leader, my obligation is to model that behavior. And like you said, I mean, we all have that obligation as a community member, but we need to be able to demonstrate that. At the City of Missoula, we're committed to a steady hand. And I know that my partners are doing the same here. And that, to me, I think will shine through. I think that'll shine through in our actions. And at a time when there's going to be a continuous amount of incredible chaos, a lot of noise, as they say, we're going to continue to stay focused on the issues that impact you and me on a daily basis and that are important in our daily lives.
I'm Madison. It was mentioned by all that funding at the federal level has affected our projects and jobs at this time. Plans are on hold. What happens if that funding doesn't come through? Is there a discussion of an alternate solution at this time?
It's a big deal.
It is. Yeah. I would say that there are conversations about what we'll do if federal grants don't come through. I mean, let me use one example. And the way federal grants work is that, you don't, a $20 million grant for the downtown safety access and mobility project, we don't get $20 million deposited into our checking account. It works in tranches. You get certain sections of the grant obligated as you work with the federal government. And so we've done what we said we would do, and we've gotten the first $4 million committed, and we've been working on the plan, the engineering, and the outreach. If the federal government chooses to not fund that project, then we will have to make a choice locally about what we do with that information and our consultants. I would say that, like Commissioner Vero said, we cannot ask you as taxpayers to fund that project because our tax base just will not support it. Not the way our current tax base is statutorily established. So we will have to make a pivot at that point. And what will we do? We will have to see if there is an adjustment that we can do to still carry through some of the most essential elements of a project like that. There may be opportunities to take a look at what we can do locally. We have capital improvement plans where we do take local dollars and state dollars, and we figure out how we can leverage those to the best impact for our residents. There's an opportunity to then take a look at, well, if this federal grant doesn't come through, are there ways that we can take some of the most essential elements to that project and still carry forward some of those aspects that continue to focus on safety, accessibility, and mobility, because we know how important that is to residents. There may have to be some things that get put on hold. That would be a situation that we would have to be very transparent with the public so folks would understand what is happening. And until we know that, we are going to continue moving forward in the most responsible manner that we can without necessarily over obligating the taxpayer or the local government in ways that we make sure that we're making responsible choices.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. I mean, the county's in the same boat. Yeah, it's a big deal, and we can't catastrophize. We got to keep at it, and then when it becomes clear that we need to pivot, we'll do that. And I can't tell you what that is going to look like or what it's. Yeah, we're going to have to cross that bridge when we get there.
Well, I mean, this isn't theoretical, right? When those grants get canceled, the work doesn't happen and people lose their jobs. And that's not an abstract concept. We have had that happen at the university already. We've had it happen to, we're talking about civil engagement and civil discourse. We had a federal grant through our Mansfield Center, eliminated. That grant was focused on democracy and fostering civic engagement in rural communities. That grant was canceled and people lost their jobs. So this is not theoretical. This is already happening. And so what's the outcome? Well, you'll see scaled back outreach efforts. You'll see scaled back support that the university can provide for the state. And you'll see a scaling back of our collective national research enterprise, which over the long run will again hurt our economic growth and decrease our standard of living. So these are not theoretical concepts. They're happening already, and it's having a real impact already. Now, that's not to say that higher ed institutions across the country don't have to adapt. They do, right? Frankly, Americans' frustration with the system of higher ed in the United States is justified in part, right? We have to adapt as university. I would tell you, I think UM is an antidote to much of what people are frustrated about with higher ed, this focus on exclusivity and price and some of the things that I would argue some institutions of higher ed have lost their way. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's really important, I think, for us as Americans to realize the research that and research infrastructure we've inherited has been key to our quality of life and our standard of living, and we destroy that at our peril.
It's hard to stand up these days. All three of you in your presentations mentioned the word inclusivity, okay? But the question here from this table is, how are you responding to and or pushing back on the anti-DEI rhetoric and efforts by the federal administration?
Oh, here we go. By continuing with the county, sticking with our foundation, our fundamentals, and continuing to do them really well, we're pushing back by continuing to do the work that we're supposed to do to serve this community, all people in this community. So I guess that's how we're pushing back at a county level, continuing to, do great work.
Yes, that and like I mentioned earlier, a federal executive order does not dictate the work of local government. And so, again, that it dictates the work of federal agencies and those employees and the grants that they administer. And so they may get the point where they're starting to ask for what the city's policies are related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. They have not. And at this point, we continue to be a city that is dedicated to diversity, we're dedicated to equity, and we're dedicated to inclusion. These are things that are our common practice. This is our business practice. I mean, the reality is, I used this example the other day when I was speaking with somebody when I said, when we bring on a young police officer and it's a young black woman, and I want her, we're gonna invest in her. You are gonna invest in her to make sure that when she goes to academy and she goes to all the special training, that this is something that somebody stays with our police force for a number of years. I want that person to feel included and welcome. And so it is not only a commitment that we make because we want our city to look like our community, but because it is just good practice. It's good business practice. So again, we will push back because we're going to continue to do the great work that we're doing every day to fill those potholes.
You know, I think what we're doing is embracing our obligation to be a place that serves everyone. You know, the University of Montana has never been a place that had policies of affirmative action or admission or legacy admissions, you know, things where we were prioritizing one group over another in terms of who we admit. We admit everybody who wants to show up and work hard. That's not a defect, that's a feature. That's a feature we're proud of. And so we're doubling down on making sure that we're a place that serves everyone. Now, we're also doubling down on making sure we understand what barriers different groups face. Right, a third of our students are the first in their family to attend college, first-generation college students. Do we have any first-gen college students here? That is fundamental to the social compact of this country. And we have to recognize that we have to do things to maybe better support students who are the first in their family to make that college to career transition by improving our career services, by improving the ways in which our alumni association facilitates some network building for our students. Is that DEI work? Favoring first-gen students? No. It's work that's core to the idea of inclusive prosperity and recognizing the hurdles that different groups might face and making sure that we're knocking down those hurdles, not just for one group, but for all groups, to make sure that we're serving everyone who wants to come to our university. So, and frankly, I've talked a lot about that, and I don't hear pushback from everyone wants our university to be a place that widens pathways to opportunity, or at least everyone I've talked to. Maybe the ones who aren't talking to me. But that's the approach that we're taking.
Hi, I'm Amy Solenberg, and our group had a little bit of a different kind of question. On the eve of Earth Day, the 55th anniversary tomorrow, Andrea spoke a little bit about some of the climate and energy work you're doing, and Juanita also spoke to that, and we thought, President Bodnar, we'd offer an opportunity for you to speak to environmental sustainability and climate efforts at the university, and then, of course, if anybody else wants to speak about Earth Day and our approach to solving some of our most significant problems, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question, and frankly, the environment and sustainability is core to who we are as a university. That is a tremendous strength of the University of Montana, and our College of Forestry and Conservation in particular. You know, whether it's the number one ranked wildlife biology program, our ecology program is top in the country. You know, what we're trying to do is continue to do the necessary research to understand the impacts and to make sure that the reason we're all here, or not all of us, but many of us are here, is the beautiful landscapes and ecosystems are preserved and conserved for future generations. And we just actually finished and are in the process of naming a chair in fisheries, bringing in a national expert to understand, you know, Montana's cold water fisheries and what's happening and how do we sustain that resource for generations to come. So you see it happening in the work that our researchers are doing. You see it happening in the advocacy that our students are engaged in. You could argue I think one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest program at UM is in the environment and sustainability. Students from across the country wanting to study that subject right here at the crown of the continent, understanding water, understanding our forest resources. And look, these aren't things these are things that have to be managed, right? We've talked about wildfire. Like, we all know that, you know, clear cutting is not good. Neither is untouched forest lands. Like, we have to manage these resources and sustain those resources. And so I think that's one of the things I'm really proud of, is the way that the university is working to understand the science and understand those solutions. And then you also see us working on this in terms of how we run our operations. We just brought into commission our new combined heating and power plant. Everyone always sees that smokestack over there at the university. That is from our I think 8-decade-old heating plant. Burned gas to produce steam to pump across campus. That provides our heat, our water. It's really the heart of campus. A few years ago, we realized, boy, that's old. A lot of the parts in that are actually, they don't make them anymore. So the question we asked was, well, what happens if that goes down? Well, we'll fabricate it. Well, what happens if that happens in January when it's -20? Well, then we're in trouble. So we said we better upgrade that plant. So we began that project, and rather than just saying, hey, let's replace it as is, create another steam generation plant, let's think about how we can adapt here, and we created a new combined heat and power. So we're still burning natural gas, but that natural gas is spinning 2 gas turbines to produce electricity. The waste heat from those gas turbines produces the steam that then provides heat and hot water for our campus. So we not only save over $1 million in terms of electricity expense, it's the single largest greenhouse gas emissions reduction project in the university history. So we're looking every day at how do we reduce our carbon footprint as we do the research and as we cultivate students who are the future resource managers for this state, for this country. Oh, well, you all already talked about it.
Brian Deary. The question that our table came up with is, in terms of collective action, are there ways the three of you can work together and collaborate in providing a more resilient safety net, social safety net for our community? The remarks earlier were we lost 3 public health from the county public health. That's a big gap. Thank you.
So you're asking how the three of us will better collaborate to provide a community social safety net. And I think the way we do that is staying in touch with each other, communicating the needs. I mean, we have, I don't know how many service providers are kind of represented in this room, various services around the city, the county, I mean, the university. So keeping those lines of communication open and not siloed and not turfy. And I like to think that we're experiencing that because of what we went through together in the pandemic.
I mean, just one very tangible example is we've seen multiple sawmills close. How do we make sure that we're understanding, okay, what are the impacts on those workers affected? What are the other opportunities, right? And what are the training programs that we can spin up very quickly to help retrain, reskill, upskill those impacted to find meaningful work? Because when we talk about inclusive prosperity, it's not just having a broad base of students that are entering the university, it's broadening our aperture to serve learners at all stages of their lives and careers. That's really important, and that's what efforts like Accelerate Montana are focused on, but those don't work in isolation, right? We have to work with our city and our county partners and the job service. And working in tandem, we can mitigate disruptions, and we can't eliminate them, but we can mitigate them by providing kind of meaningful training opportunities and also by attracting those new businesses to come in and fill those gaps, right? I taught economics, and everyone talks about, when I was on faculty at West Point, and we talk about creative destruction, and there's going to be change and all that, and that's good over the long run. It is, but people in the near term are affected, and it takes government, it takes business, and it takes education to mitigate those impacts. And that's one live example in the last 6 months that we've worked very closely on, and I think we're going to continue to do things like that.
I mean, I think that those are excellent examples of things that we've done just recently, getting folks to basically retool their skill set to be able to move from one particular position to another. And I think it was about 100 and, no, it was about, it's about 150 people moved through that program through the course of those two mills closing. One of the things that hasn't been asked a question yet, and I'll just take advantage of having the microphone to talk about the right now the fact that the city and locally we have no more federal dollars to be able to keep open the Johnson Street emergency temporary shelter is a situation in which we have made a very concerted effort to not just close the doors and walk away, but to actually step down the occupancy there of the shelter by standing up a housing sprint alongside of that. It is an effort that we're working on with our local partners and so many people in the community who have stepped forward to say, how is it that we can get creative to help in this space? Because we've recognized that there has been a pain point here, or we're not able to achieve our goals of helping people get connected into housing and to stay there. What can we do to actually address our local systems? And so this is an effort we've been making around the community already. When there is an urgency in front of you, there tends to be some incredible innovation, iteration, and creativity. And we are seeing that happen, not only with our local governments and university, we're seeing that with businesses, we're seeing that with the faith community, and seeing this in places that have really been very, I shouldn't say surprising, because this is Missoula. This is a place that we, hold up service in ways that is really incredible. But we are seeing things that I didn't think that we would see before, in terms of folks saying, hey, we're a recovery center and we haven't been able to make this direct connection with folks in ways that we want to. We want to make sure that people that are getting housed have the ability to stay that way, because their needs in terms of if there is addiction to either substance use or other ways that we can connect with them and help them stay successfully housed. And we're seeing folks show up to these meetings that we're having at the Johnson Street shelter, where twice a week we've got a group of service providers. It's led by a core group of folks from the city, and we're partnering with folks from the county and University of Montana graduates, myself being one. And but folks are at the table basically saying, what is it that you need from us in order to make this successful? We learn from it. It's a very imperfect system. However, rather than just close the doors and walk away from a situation in which we don't have the resources to address, we need to lean into this situation to figure out how is it that we're going to be able to help folks that are going to need to get either connected into permanent housing, or connected and reunited with family and friends, or connected to other more appropriate services like different recovery and mental health services. And so this is an example, I believe, of where we have seen people that have come to the table in which we have not seen folks before, leaning in and seeing how is it that we can be a part of the solution.
Hi, my name is Molly. I wanted to ask a question kind of really related to what you guys were just talking about, in the spirit of intervention, public-private partnership, inclusive prosperity, but ask what we're doing right now to double down on all of our residents 18 and under who don't vote, who don't get a voice, and if we aren't leaning into MCPS early and often, who's going to fill the shoes of all of our baby boomers that have chosen or forcibly lost their jobs since COVID to recent history? And how are we preparing for 7 decades into the future, as President Bader alluded to, by preparing our 18 and under residents right now to step into these jobs and to be eligible to go to UM?
Thank you. This is something I'm passionate about. I'm the son of 2 public school educators, and I'm the father now of 2 Hellgate Knights. Yeah, I know, KAK. Those who know. And a little Paxton Panther. So this is near and dear to me. And I think our public school educators, I'm looking around to see if I see anybody on the school board. I mean, they're doing, do we have any school board members? All right, thank you. This is fundamentally important work. It is dramatically underfunded. And so efforts around teacher pay, teacher retention efforts, I can't tell you how important that is. In fact, Wednesday night, we're going to celebrate a recent gift from the Washington Foundation. So Phyllis Washington, just a phenomenal generosity in creating the Washington Scholars Program at the University of Montana, where we are saying to any of all of our best and brightest students, you know, you apply, you become a Washington Scholar, you graduate. If you stay in Montana for 3 years, each year a third of your debt gets forgiven. And so, look, we can't fix teacher pay, but we can wipe that off the table. So I think first and foremost, it requires us to value the importance of K through 12 educators and the fundamental role they play in the health of this country. So that's first, and then. One of the things we're always working on is to ensure that we're as well integrated as possible. I mean, I'm deeply concerned about some of the messaging to students right now in high schools saying, hey, you don't need to go on to college, right? Now, not everybody needs to go on to 4-year, right? But as you think about entering this workforce without a 4-year or a 2-year or skills, you're facing a pretty perilous path. And the percentage of Montanans who are going on to any kind of education after high school is plummeting. So we need to change that messaging, and that's as much as we can push it at our level. It takes the community to say, look, it's there's a career in the trades and in skilled labor is a very, very good, respectful, proud path in life. We want to push you toward that, right? Or we want to push you toward a 4-year degree. But we are working to do a better job of providing multiple on-ramps to education that's going to ultimately have to happen over the course of a lifetime. So I think there needs to be better integration. We're working on that. It's one of the benefits of having a 2-year school in Missoula College. So I know Dean Tom Gallagher is working very closely with our high school leaders here in Missoula across the state to make more clear those pathways to education and training. And then acknowledging the fact that, yeah, right now those students who were missing after graduation, that 50% of Montanans who aren't going on one place or another, well, we got to be ready to serve them 10 years down the road, right? When they want to come back, we got to make that easier. And we got to make those pathways shorter and clearer for people who want to reskill or upskill to find employment and frankly to fill the necessary jobs that we have. You're right, Montana's one of the grayest states, if not the grayest state west of the Mississippi. We have a demographic and workforce crisis ahead of us, and we got to start acting now. But it does take that comprehensive approach.
Mic drop.
Yeah, and I guess it's an education-focused question. I can own that one.
I have one thing I would add. You know, it takes each of us in our what we can do in our spaces. So sorry, Alex. One thing I would want to add is that at the city, through our Parks and Rec department, we have been working with Missoula County Public Schools. We had a pilot program that we kicked off some years ago, and we've been able to continue to do this where we're providing after-school care. So there's been some change at the legislature, and there's been opportunities for us to help 4-year-olds and up with connecting with after-school care. And right now we're in 2 schools. We'd love to see that expand to 3 schools. These are Title I schools. And we have heard from parents. They say, thank you for this after-school program. It's basically enabled us to continue, both of us continue working. I want to thank Jenny. Thank you for being here for a public school trustee. I think that shows that our community is finding ways that we continue to work together. And I just have this story that this was like really got my heartstrings, but it says why we're doing what we're doing. Meg Witcher, who runs one of our after school program for this program. Yeah, right on. She's just amazing. I met with her on the University of Montana golf course during the winter when we were running a after-school program, and it was a Nordic ski program. Great example of partnership. The Nordic club bought all these like teeny tiny skis for all these little kids. I mean, adorable. They're like little toothpicks, and all these littles were showing up. One of the stories that she told me was about these 3 kids whose mother is unable to get her kids to school because she is battling an addiction, and she's not able to get her kids to school, or she's not able to get her kids to after-school programs. So Missoula County, or excuse me, the City of Missoula Parks and Rec Department shows up in a van and picks those kids up. We bring them to the different programs that we are offering after school. We make sure those kids have something to eat, a light snack, connect with not only their peers, but also teenage mentors, because we have a teenage mentorship program as part of this after school program where those kids are gaining job skills and something that they can put on their resume. But these kids are part of a community. They're welcome. They're using their bodies. And we take them home at the end of that time. Those are the kinds of things that we're doing together to help make sure that we're providing the necessary, safe, welcoming, and really encouraging community that we are, that will help our younger folks become those 18-year-old folks that we're looking forward to the next generation. So we continue to figure out ways all the time that we can maximize our local resources to make this kind of stuff happen.
Well, I know I'm very thankful for the after-school programs. Take advantage of that. My kids love it. But we're over time, so I'll make this really, really brief. Big thanks to our three community leaders who are up here and all the other community leaders out in the audience. I thank you for being available and accessible to everybody here. I'd also like to thank the great staff at the library here for helping us organize this space for such a big crowd. Silk Road Catering as well for the delicious food. If you want to try some, there's still some food outside if you want to pick something up on the way out. Stay tuned. Next month we're working on a forum about the legislative session, still kind of fleshing that out. I have a very exciting forum coming in June as well on wildfires, so stay tuned for that as well. And thanks so much for attending. Have a great day.